Thanks for joining me. I'm Lynn Sherritt, and this is Faces Friday. I want to explore with you learning walks and talks because I get this question often. So Carol Grinstead from the Melbourne Archdiocese of Catholic Schools, Eastern Region, is asking me about learning walks and talks and how do we manage them daily. Well, they are manageable when they're focused, purposeful, 5 minutes, and they become record collection. It's really important to know that they're always non-evaluative. Have a listen.
My question's around the learning walks and talks and having conversations with principals and leaders. Have you got any tips about how this can happen on a daily basis?
Yes, yeah. And I believe that we need to change our language around visiting classrooms and visiting schools to actually walking and talking purposefully in schools, in classrooms. And so as system leaders, we need to walk and talk together. And that certainly points to us knowing what we're looking for. So our walks and talks need to be purposeful. They need to look for evidence of student thinking. It was like our work this morning. There was lots of evidence in the walls of student thinking, of learner thinking today together. When we're instructional leaders in schools, we also need to walk and talk. And I've said that learning walks and talks are only 5 minutes, very purposefully, because people say, "Oh, I haven't got time. Sorry, I'm really busy and I don't have time to." So I've made it 5 minutes. It can be 10. I mean, there's nothing written in stone, but it needs to be short, sharp, and shiny because we are busy, and we do need to acknowledge that all of us are busy. Leaders are busy, but they can manage 5 minutes.
Yes.
5 minutes on the way to deliver the milk money, or return the lost lunch bag, or whatever they're doing in the school to walk through the school. Make a purposeful stop to focus on a classroom, to focus on a face, and ask students 5 questions. And it doesn't take more than 5 minutes, but it needs to be daily and ongoing, because for me, learning walks and talks are data collection. They need to be about collecting data, and it's feedback for me as an instruction leader about how I'm doing in terms of the professional learning I'm providing for my staff. So when we think about learning walks and talks, there's 5 minutes, 6 minutes out of our day. We want to really be purposeful in getting into a classroom, and where the teachers are not providing direct instruction and students are available, ask 5 questions. And that gives us all the information we need to know about what the teachers are doing in that class. So what are you learning and why? How are you doing? Or you say, how are you going?
How are you going? Yeah.
How do you know how you're going? How can you improve? And where do you go for help? And that, all of those questions lead to assessment for NAS learning. The last question is really important, and I just worked with some secondary school instructional leaders a couple of weeks ago, and they were focusing on that question number 5 because they found their students in years 11 and 12 did not know where to go to learn and become independent, self-directed learners. They relied on the teacher to provide the answers, and we must start in kindergarten very early in those early years to ensure that our students are self-reliant, are assessment capable, and they know where to go to learn. So that's really the essence of our learning walks and
Have
talks.
you seen that work well when the principal does that on a regular basis? But where does that information go? Does that stay with the principal?
No.
Or have you seen practices
Yes,
where that is effective?
absolutely, because principals, after many walks in a classroom, will have authentic conversations with teachers about what they want to know even more about in terms of being an instructional leader. And teachers want to know right away when principals are in classrooms. What did you see? What did you think? It's very dangerous to provide that information after a 5-minute walk in a classroom.
Yes.
So we have to be in classrooms often before we give authentic feedback to teachers. And we can also do that at staff meetings. Here's what I'm noticing in my daily walks and talks. And so that informs me about our next steps for learning. So here's what I've seen, and here's where I think we need to go next in our professional learning sessions.
So it's about being strategic in using that information in multiple places.
Absolutely.
Around the
And it's
professional
not
learning.
evaluative. That's so important to know. Oh, I didn't see this in your
Yes.
classroom.
Yes.
It's not about that. It's about here's our next level of learning to ensure there's consistency of best practice across the school. So when I'm walking, I'm collecting data on what I'm seeing. I'm thinking about my next professional learning session and what we need to go more deeply in. And I'm also thinking about where are the places that I can take some teachers who are not quite there yet alongside me to learn from another teacher. So I think the strategic leadership is getting into classrooms and on a regular basis, on an ongoing basis, and finding out the places that we want to replicate across our schools.
So coming full circle then to our first question about that team of principals that then took that from their own school,
Yes,
then did that in others' schools.
exactly.
You could see then that they're starting to look at, like you discussed with us today, the in-school variances.
Yes.
And then seeing similarities and differences from
Absolutely.
each other,
Yeah.
and that collective sort of
Yes.
gathering of wisdom around where
Exactly.
to next.
And for me, that's how all the parameters work. They kind of meld together for
Yes.
me. We're not
Yeah.
doing one and then the other. When I think about shared responsibility and accountability, I think about walking in schools and owning the data that I'm collecting and sharing it and having all of us own all the faces and be collectively responsible and accountable for improvement in the school.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you.
It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for joining me on This Faces Friday. I'm looking forward to being with you again next week, next Friday. See you then.